So for this video, we're going to be sewing the skirt. So you have your two fronts, you have the two pockets, two pocket facings, and your back is on the fold. So when you open it up, it's a whole piece. That's your back. Okay, now the other thing that's important is with these pieces right here, you need to make sure you have a left and a right. So if you didn't make a print on your muslin, you need to face the center front. So this is where the facing is, right here, okay? That's that extended facing. Face those together so they're right next to each other. Now I have a left and I have a right skirt. So then mark it, write on it, do something so that you know that you have a left and a right. Pockets, same thing, okay? You have the pocket, this is the pocket opening right here. This is the side seam of the pocket, and this is the waist, okay? And that's the other side seam. So the edge of the pocket where the style line of the pocket bag is, have those two facing each other. Now you know you have a left and a right, and put in some markings so that you always know that that's a left and a right. Now when we start sewing the pockets, we're going to do the same thing as we did with the sleeves. We're going to sew the pocket facing onto the pocket opening of the right and the pocket facing onto this pocket on the left. And then we're going to go press them, then we're going to come back and top stitch. So we're doing both pockets at the same time so that we don't make a mistake by making two pockets of the same and then not being able to sew them onto the skirt. Okay, so we're going to right now start with the pockets. We're going to go to the machine and I'm going to sew a quarter seam. So I put, this is the face of the fabric or the print side. This is the side that we put the fusing. And this is the print side, so that's face up. This is the wrong side. So I'm going to place the facings on top so that it is print side to print side. And the fusing will be face up. Okay, we're going to sew a quarter seam. So just back tack a little bit and we're sewing a quarter. Okay, so that's all we're sewing is just that right now. So I'm going to do the other one. So I'm going to start at this end. That notch here is telling me this is a quarter and to sew this way. Make sure that your seams are even. And then back tack. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the iron and we're going to press this back and around, and we're not going to do any understitching because we're going to do top stitching. We want to top stitch this pocket opening so we have a little bit of a decorative look. So we're going to go to the iron and do that. Go. All right, so again, I want to press this, and it's on a curve. So what I like to do is just kind of press that up just a little bit so it's pressed up. I'm going to turn this around. So as you can see, I want to keep this flat. So I pressed that, so I pressed this side so it would be a little bit flat. Okay? Now I'm going to turn it over, and then I'm going to turn the facing so it's laying on top. So there's the facing, and it's laying right on top, and the seam is right at the pocket opening, and it's flat. Okay. So that's all I'm going to do, and then we're going to do some top stitching. So this is the pocket opening of your pocket. Okay, so we're going to do the next one. Again, what I did is I just kind of I just pressed it so it would kind of press flat like that. Okay, just to keep this seam here flat. After I do that, then I flip it over and fold the facing all the way back on top of the underside of the skirt, of the pocket, and then press. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the sewing machine, and we're going to do some top stitching, and then back to the iron and do some more pressing. Go. Okay, so this is the facing that we pressed back, and now we're going to do our top stitching right here, just at the pocket opening. Now I'm going to do a quarter top stitch. You can do whatever you want. You can do an edge stitch, you can do a quarter, you can do double needle, whatever you feel would be nice for your dress. Okay, so I'm just sewing a quarter top stitch. So my eye is right here, letting this finished edge line up with that quarter mark on the machine. I don't need to back tack, so I'll do the next one so you can see that again. So there's my quarter top stitch. Okay, so I'm going to do this next one, same thing. I'm just doing the pocket opening. So as you can see, the clean edge of my pocket opening here is lined up right at that quarter mark. Now that's where my eye is going to be, right here, watching this line up, and I'll sew a perfect quarter seam. Perfect quarter seam, or quarter top stitch. Okay. All right, so then we're going to go back to the iron, and we're going to press this pocket so that we're ready to set it to our skirt. Okay. All right, so we need to clean our pocket bag, and we're only cleaning here where the notch is, telling me to fold that under a 1/2 inch all the way down, and then this one telling me to fold this under a 1/2 inch. So the side seam is going to stay open, and where it sews to the waist, that will stay open as well. We don't want to fold that. So I'm turned it over, so this is the wrong side, and I'm just going to fold this a 1/2 inch and press. So it's a little bit of a curve. And the same thing on the bottom of the bag. Okay, so there's my pocket. So now it's nice and clean. As you can see, this is still raw edge. That's the side seam, and this is the waist. Okay, so I'm going to do that on this one. Same thing, flip it over. That notch right there is telling me to fold and go fold this direction. And the bottom, again, I'm folding it 1/2 inch. Okay. So there I have now 2 pockets. One is for the right side and one is for the left side. Okay, now we're going to go back. We're going to go to the table, actually, and I'm going to show you how to put these onto the skirt. Go. Okay, so this is our skirt right here, and these are our pockets. The back we don't need right now, so I'm going to just set that aside. Okay, so now I'm going to darken the notches so that you can see this. This notch right here, and this notch, and then this pocket notch here, and this notch. Okay, that's how I'm going to set my pocket bag. So this is the waist, and as you can see, those notches match my pocket. And then the side seam here, that will match. So I'm matching the notches with my pocket. This is the only way that I know how to actually place this pocket onto this skirt. So once I have it set, then I'm just going to put a few pins, just like 2 pins, just in the middle to hold it down so it doesn't move around. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the other one. So again, I've got this notch here, this notch, this one, and this one. Okay? So now I'm going to place, again, lining up the side seam so the pocket is right in those notches, right in between the notches. The waist notches are lined up. The pocket is lined up on the waist notches. And then I'm just going to put in like 2 pins just in the middle to hold it down. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to sew these pockets onto the onto the skirt. And we're also going to clean this raw edge of the facing. Just like we did for the bodice, we cleaned that edge. So we're going to do the same thing here. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is an edge stitch. So I'm going to edge, it's kind of hard to see, so I'm going to just make a pencil line. Here's the edge of my pocket. Okay, I'm going to edge stitch next to that edge, just like that, right there. Okay, that's where I'm edge stitching. So my eye is going to be where this fold of my pocket is going to be just a little tiny bit under this leg of the presser foot. Okay, and then I'm just going to keep my eye there watching, so I sew this nice edge stitch. When I get to this corner here, I'm going to do just a few stitches by hand so I can get right at that edge. So do you see how I got right at that edge by doing a few stitches by hand? Now I'm going to leave the needle down, lift the presser foot, and then I'm going to turn so that I can start edge stitching on the bottom part of the bag. Okay. Now, the other thing that I want to do is the pocket's on, but as you can see, that this is going to flip-flop around, do you see? And when I start sewing my side seams together for my front and my back, this might flip over and then I won't catch it, and that's not going to be good. So I'm going to just do a stay stitch. We call that a stay stitch. And I'm only going to do that 1/4 inch. So just a 1/4 inch stay stitch just to down the pocket side. Just like that. It's not going to be in the way because my seam allowance is a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to cover this, but at least it won't flop around, okay? At the waist here, you don't really need to do that. if it's really wide, then you might want to stay stitch at the waist as well. Okay, so that's the first one. And then the second one, same thing. I'm going to edge stitch. So now my eye is here. Here's the fold, and it's just a little bit underneath this leg of the presser foot. And I'm just going to keep my eye there, so I sew this nice edge stitch. Again, when I get real close to that corner, a few stitches by hand till I get to that edge. Lift the presser foot up with the needle down and then turn and continue. Okay, so what we want to do is, again, we want to do that little quarter stay stitch on the side seam of the pocket. You don't have to back tack, it's just a stay stitch, it's no big deal. Trim all the threads. Make sure that all your threads are nice and trimmed. Okay. All right, so now what I want to do is, there's my pockets. So remember I was saying that this is the extension. So when we made the pattern to the skirt, we didn't make a separate extension. We made an extension that actually folds over instead of being sewed on like we did with the bodice. So with the bodice facing, we did a clean finish by turning the raw edge up a 1/4 inch and then just doing a top stitch. So we're going to do the exact same thing on the skirt so it matches the facing of the bodice, so when we sew it together it all just runs into one and it looks correct. So I'm just turning that over and then I'm just sewing down the middle. So I'm folding this over just a 1/4 inch and then sewing right in the middle. Okay, you don't have to back tack. Okay, so that's all nice and clean. We'll do the other one as well. Again, this is the wrong side. This is where my fusing is. This is the wrong side up. I'm going to fold the raw edge of the facing, the all-in-one facing here, up a 1/4 inch, and I'm going to stitch right in the middle. And you don't really need to press it. You can just kind of fold it over and then just press it with your fingers, hold it down, and that's good enough. Okay. All right, so now we're going to go back to the table and I'll show you how to set the side seams. Next is side seams. Go. All right, so here's our back. We're going to lay the back skirt on the table so that the print side is facing up. And we're going to lay the skirt, the front skirt, down on the side seam so that the wrong side is facing up. Okay, so this is my right side, and that's facing the skirt. This is my wrong side, that's facing me. And I'm going to line up the side seam, and I'm just going to put in like 1 or 2 pins right now just to kind of hold it so that when I walk over to the sewing machine, it doesn't fall apart. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to set the other side, the other front, to the other side seam. Again, the skirt is, the print side is down. There's the print side down, and the wrong side of the fabric is facing me. Okay, so I'm going to line up the side seam and just put in a pin, just 2 pins, whatever, just enough. Okay, so now we're going to go over to the sewing machine. We're going to sew those side seams together. Okay, so this notch right here, that notch is telling me that this is a 1/2 inch seam and to sew this direction. So that's what this is. It's a 1/2 inch seam. We're going to start at the top here, and we're going to back tack. We need to back tack. And then we're just going to make sure that our seams match. So we want them to lay flat, but we don't want to stretch. The one thing that you don't want to do is stretch, otherwise the side seams will be uneven by the time you get down to the hem. Okay, so do you see, notice that now I have gone over that stay stitch about 1/4 inch, so now it's not going to show on the outside of the garment. Okay, so I want to lay those together right here. That's even, and continue. And then back tack. Okay, so we're going to do the other side. Now, I like to go from the waist down, so I'm going to flip this over so that it is set so that the waist, I'm starting at the waist, and I'm going to follow the notches. So my 1/2 inch seam, back tack, and I can take my pins out now, and I'm just going to line up my hip, but I'm not going to stretch it. And then line up my bottom of my side seam. And then back tack. Okay, so now we're going to go to the iron and we're going to press the seams open. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm laying this flat and I'm going to open the seam and press. Okay, by now you should know how that works. So we want to make sure that's nice and flat. Okay, I'm going to do the other one. One thing you don't want to do is stretch it while you're pressing. Okay, you just want to try to let it relax. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so now you'll see that you have this very long piece of project you just did. This is the waist. Okay, so this is ready to go. The hem, sometimes I like to hem the skirt before we attach it to the waist. I don't know.
Make
What
it
should we
separate.
do?
Let's make that a separate video.
Okay, we're going to make it a separate video, hemming. So then the skirt is finished. So the next thing is attaching the skirt to the bodice.